Hello again, this is IGN Live at E3 2019. Now, Greedfall is an action RPG that combines a quaint and charming rustic 17th century colonial setting with horrifying fantasy monsters. I'm joined now by Max Scoville to tell us more, and Greedfall's Jehan Rousseau from Spiders, which is probably my favorite name of any developer on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
We're not
so let's check out the game. This is definitely the quaint, rustic setting that we spoke of earlier. I've not seen the terrifying monsters yet, but I imagine...
Yeah, but it will really come soon. You'll see.
So Greedfall is set on an island that's being colonized, right?
Yeah, it's the very beginning of that colonization. But this part that you can see in the video, in fact, it's before that. You're beginning the game in a city that is still in the old continent, and with some of your companions and your cousin Constantine that is supposed to become a governor on this new island.
Ow.
You will, yeah, here comes a monster. You will travel to this island, and this is really when the game will begin, in fact. Yeah, so this is the end of the prologue when you're leaving the island, and as you can see, everything is not going as expected. So
This is extremely my jam. There's
Well,
something
good
really
to know.
wonderful about that sort of uninhabited setting that comes with, the fear that gets coupled with people sort of arriving to a new place and colonizing it for the first time. What made you guys decide about that? Because I think like the modern world now is inhabited. It's a known quantity. It feels like lived in. There's not a lot of surprise and fear around every corner in the same way. So how did you guys land on this setting?
well, in fact, the idea first was really to develop a game that was about exploration. And by thinking about it, it makes sense after a while to use the 17th century as a kind of, well, of course, it's just an historical reference because it's not history, obviously. But it was
not.
also a way to, I think, to bring some feelings in the game that really comes with, discovery. And it's by, this travel to this journey to this new island, by meeting all these strange creatures and the people, the actual inhabitants of the island that are also there and that are very different. We created a whole culture for them with a language, with some different way of wearing their clothes. The architectures of their houses are different. And it was very interesting to show this encounter between two different worlds. And even the people coming from these old and dying cities, they're not all the same. There are some different cultures also from these colonists. So you will also have to interact with them. And I think that this setting was very interesting because it could allow us to talk about many different things. The discovery and exploration, which is, I think, something that is very exciting in many RPGs, but also some more political or diplomatic aspects that could be very fun and that are not that much used in fantasy video games. And it's funny because, in some TV shows like Game of Thrones, politics in heroic fantasy is something that is now, well known. And I think that bringing it to video games was also something interesting.
Yeah, I think that there's a certain adventure that comes with, colonizing something, but there's also, if there are people already there, it's not really that nice to show up and just start, setting up shop.
Exactly. And it's, of course, bringing a lot of choices for the player. That is also something that is very important to me when we are, writing and developing an RPG. We want to give choices to the player. And here, by having several factions in the game, some from the whole continent and, of course, some from the island, and to allow the player to side with whom he wants, to make alliance, to meet plenty of different people, to listen to their story and make choices based on all what he has discovered, and of course his own, feelings toward that. It gives a lot of freedom, and also it gives a real impact of these choices on the universe and on the gaming experience.
Now, you mentioned a lot of exploration. Is this an open world game?
No, it's not a real open world game. It's, the island is composed of several big areas that you can, travel and discover. And each of these areas are, connected with dungeons and, plenty of places to discover and find. This is the type of landscape that you will discover on this island. So around the cities that have been built by the colonists, you can see more traditional, houses and architecture. But the more you go inside the island, the more weird and foreign you will discover. Some new creatures because the animals are different there. Some different also people, of course. So.
I really love the aesthetic here because I feel like we've seen lots of RPGs that do sort of Western fantasy, knights in shining armor, and all that. You don't see quite a lot of 17th century stuff,
especially down to like the art design on the map is just stunning.
Yeah, I love the sort of there be monsters here.
Yeah, exactly.
I've seen a couple screenshots that look like you just took I don't know, classical paintings and just happened to drop monsters.
You're completely right. You're completely right because it was really the idea to find back this Flemish feeling, the one you can find in this old painting from the 17th century. So we really worked to try to find this feeling inside the game with, of course, the different lights, the colors. Also, for the costumes, we even worked with someone who is really designing and costumes for the movie industry and for the films and historical films. So she gave us a lot of intel and information on how the clothes back then were designed. So we really want this game to reflect something that was not history, but that is, bringing magic into this 17, feeling.
Yeah, I do love how painterly it looks because obviously there wasn't, 4K video footage of that era back then. It was documented through painting, so that's sort of how we know it, and to see that recreated is really interesting. I wanted to talk a little bit about the creature design because that sort of wooden bone monster we saw at the beginning is incredible. It's like totally my jam. It feels a little Bloodborne-y. There's it feels like some stuff from like The Witch or something like that. There's a lot of like really cool stuff happening there. So how do you guys come up with monsters for this game?
Well, there are different types of monsters in the game. Some are, have you seen just previous this
sort of like bears, kind of?
Yeah, we have some more normal, animal-like creatures, and we have these huge creatures that are deeply connected to the island. The idea was to imagine how the island itself, by defending against colonists, what sort of creature it could create by itself using the different type of environments of the island. So as we have, of course, some part of the island with dead woods, it gave this type of monsters, but we have also swamp monsters, mountain monsters, and each time that, they physically look like the environment they are from. So it was something that was important to us to reflect that aspect.
No, so it's almost like the island itself is sort of fighting back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The title Greedfall, is it sort of implying the kind of inherent selfishness that comes with?
It's difficult for me to answer because it's really spoiling. In fact, this title was a great title, but I think it may be giving a little too much information. So, but well, I hope you'll discover that by playing.
I'm all about surprise in a game like this, so that's good to know.
We've got different types of cities. There are 3 big cities on this island, and each of it has a different philosophy or look because it's connected to one of the different factions. And during the game, some of the choices you've made can really change the political presence of this different faction on this island. Some faction can really disappear from the island. So each choice has a lot of importance, even if they can, seems very minor at the beginning, but then 10 hours later, it can, become really important, and you understand now that you should have maybe be careful.
Now, in terms of traversal, obviously we saw the character running around. We saw like a more scripted section with a boat. Will there be horses or weird horse monsters you can ride or anything like that?
We did not have some horses or creatures like that. It's mostly your travels will be mostly by foot, by discovering some new path, and there are also some kind of teleport places through this fire camp. I mean, it's very classic. Or also, there are some places in the island where you can meet some merchant with wagons, and by interacting with them, they can drive you to the next city. So we avoid using horses or creatures like that.
Can you tell us a bit about the NPC companions?
Yeah, there are 5 companions that you can recruit through the game, and each of these companions has his own story. He's himself connected to a different faction, so they will be very helpful in your interaction with this faction if you're friendly enough with them, because of course, if you're not listening to them, if you're not doing some quest for them, after a while they can betray you or leave the place or die even.
Oh.
So, it's also something you should take into account. If of this companion can be equipped, you can't really give them orders, but they have some very specific specialties and skills, and of course by using these companions in the fights to complete your own skills, it can be very helpful. So here.
It's nice to have some friends along on this horrible bat nightmare island.
And well, these companions really bring a lot of story elements. We really want all the quests to be connected to the main quest, so even their story will bring some more, information and elements to go through this whole story. So you should really listen to what they have to say, as they can be really helpful during your travel.
One last question. Are there sort of status effects like poison or madness?
Madness, no, but poison, of course. And there are also different effects that are connected to the magic of the islands or to the magic of the colonies, because they also use a kind of magic which is more related to a kind of divine magic. So this type of magic can, affect your character during the fights mostly, but there are plenty of alchemical potion you can take to get rid of this type of effects.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is Greedfall, one of the big games of E3 that we can't wait to play. We've got lots more E3 video game coverage coming up on IGN Live. Hey, Damon, you're over there at our official update station. What's coming up next? And are there monsters and magic involved?
Coming up next, a special live E3 episode of Game Scoop with special guest Felicia Day. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.